Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Okay, thank you very much for coming tonight. Tonight is already the 18th chapter of Startup Grind Bratislava. Tonight we have a very special guest. It's Juraj Vaculik, CEO and co-founder of hypertension Slovak company called AeroMobil. For those who are here for the first time or heard about Startup Grind just recently, we are a global community of entrepreneurs. There's 1 million members in our community, and we run these events on a monthly basis to kind of share stories of successful entrepreneurs and perhaps to inspire you and kick off your project as well. It's also a community where we try to help each other out, so feel free to mingle with each other. We'll have some beers and baguettes afterwards. Before we kick off with the first set of questions, I would like to very much thank our sponsors, Slovak Telecom, and recently a new addition, Decent, which is a blockchain company, also from Slovakia, so maybe another, or already seen as a new success story in Bratislava. So, without further ado, please give it up for Juraj and we'll kick off. Thanks.
Hello? Maybe try this one.
Okay.
I'll figure it out.
So, good afternoon. Looks that with mic it's much more difficult, like with the flying car.
But, okay.
Be expert. So, thank you very much for having me here. I'm looking forward to all the questions, and I hope that we will share together inspirational evening. So, let's start.
Actually, one thing I forgot, we are also using Slido tonight, so if you just go ahead and type in your smartphones, slido.com, and use hashtag SUGDA, I will answer, or I will leave 10 to 15 minutes at the end to answer the question, so good.
And in advance, I would like to apologize if time to time I will be having some strange sounds here. I'm a bit sick, so I'm trying to pass it without any problems, but I apologize upfront. Thanks.
Great. So usually how we start, we try to look into the background of the entrepreneurs. So my first question will be about where you grew up, where you're from, and you could perhaps even tell us what your parents did.
Okay, so my background in connection with what I'm doing at the moment, it's a bit strange. So I was born in Trnava, then the whole family moved in Banská Bystrica. I lived there for the first 15 years of my life, and my background through my family is artistic one. My father is an actor, and my mother, she was a producer in the theater, so I have both parts of this, so artistic and also managing one, so that's the background. Then when I was 15 years old, we then came back to Trnava, where those times there was an amazing theater with the people like Filip and Jurajs and all those famous names from the Slovak culture, and I became somehow part of this, and then I went to the school, and that's the different part of my life.
It's actually quite interesting that you have an artistic background. Usually entrepreneurs, the typical background is technological or kind of business oriented. What do you think that art school gave you to be a good entrepreneur?
A very good question. I was asking myself this question a few times, and then I realized that what I'm doing all my life, those are just two things. All my life I'm just analyzing and then improvising. When I was in the theater, I was analyzing dramatic texts, and then I was improvising with actors, and I was creating something which at the end was one specific piece of art. In my advertising period, I was analyzing the market situation, competitors of my client, and then I was improvising with my creative stuff to create a brand new message. And these days also I'm analyzing logistics and certification, and then I'm improvising with my people how to create something absolutely unique. And what was also pretty similar that in each different project, in each different period of my life, it was the only way how to succeed, to convince, to motivate, to lead very diverse group of people towards one common goal. In arts, in theater, it was from stage designers, actors, light masters, sound engineers, very different professions. And at the end, the goal was that people at the end were crying or smiling or clapping their heads, influenced by what we created together. So at the end, this is similar what I was then doing during my advertising period, and also these days when I have people from aviation, from automotive, from certification, from sales, media, is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. I read that you're also involved somewhat in the Velvet Revolution as a student. I think there's also a nice kind of bridge to AeroMobil, what you guys are trying to do. Could you tell us how this impacted kind of your life and kind of your progress then into the career after?
Yeah, absolutely. Still, even I'm really enjoying what I'm doing at the moment. That period of my life was, I think, the most important and influenced and somehow formatting me in a most positive way, because as one of the student leaders in 1989, I really have this personal experience how really even very small group of people can achieve something which looks from outside it's simply impossible. So we changed the political situation, and really the initial group of people was very small. Of course, then next weeks and months it became somehow the mass movement and something which will unite the whole nation. But at the beginning it was something which was pretty dangerous. It was not as easy as it looks at the end, and for me it's exactly another verification that even a small group of extremely committed, motivated, and people trusting each other can really achieve something which maybe few years ago will look like absolutely impossible.
And so obviously didn't join the politics sphere. So what was your first career path? First job?
That was pretty funny, because I started, again, I was grown in former Czechoslovakia, in former communist regime, so it was not as easy to get to the university. So even I passed twice the talent exams as a best student because of my parents' activity in 1968. I was not allowed to go straight to the school, so I was, as a worker, I was working in a theater as a Polisar. I don't know the Polisar. Then
backstage guy.
Backstage guy. Then I was working as a sound and light engineer in the theater, which was like the working positions. And because of that, I passed. I was not anymore the son of intellectuals. I became, through my own identity, as a worker. And at the Academy of Fine Arts, there was a rule, like in each high school, those times that as a worker there was allocation that few people each year must be from the working class. So I was able to pass on a third year into the university. And then I started studying theater direction. And actually my first job was that when I was in third year of my studies, it was right after the revolution. So my professors, they asked me if I became boss of their company, because right after the revolution in 1990, my professors, they tried to recreate the famous Divadlo na Korze, which was banned in late 60s. So it was pretty funny that in a school I was a student of my teachers, and my teachers decided that I will be the right boss of them. So that was pretty funny, because during the day I was a student, and at the evening in a theater I was their boss. And that leads me to my first company, which never did anything, but I founded my first company in my life, my first limited company with my former professor Milan Lasica. So he was my first business partner, but we never did anything. but it was a good inspirational discussion.
So what was the goal of the company?
Actually, it was pretty clear and I think relevant. We were trying to build the first independent non-state theater in 90s, but we failed to get the first facility. Even we have the right one. We already got those times some bank credit, but we were not able to pass all the paperwork, so we failed.
Okay, and then you joined BDO when they entered Czechoslovakia or Slovakia and Czech market.
So yeah, exactly. So even I was pretty happy in my artistic life. I was those times the youngest artistic director in any professional theater in former Czechoslovakia as a director, pretty young. I was already working as a director in theaters from Prague, Bratislava, in really famous theaters. But somehow my entrepreneurial spirit was driving me, and there was not so many options how to start and what to start. And surprisingly, it came to me, this business, because right after the revolution, of course, the free market started to be created here, and advertising was necessary to support free market. Of course, those years there was nothing like advertising or marketing, so the first networks which came here were trying to find the right people, both from business side and from artistic. So somehow they got a lead to me, so they visited me. It was a funny story. In old Astorka, they visited me, they asked for me, and they introduced themselves. They are from the BBDO. I have no idea who's that, so they explained to me. They offered me straight away the position of creative director of the agency. So I asked them, so please explain to me what does it mean. But it was pretty motivating to try something absolutely unusual. So then I decided, okay, so let's start. So I was one of the founding members of Mark BBDO office in late 1992 here in Bratislava. Then right after 3 months, I got an offer to move to Prague and to become creative director of Mark BBDO Prague. Surprisingly, after 9 months, I said, okay, what you are doing is not the perfect way how to create an ad agency in former Czechoslovakia. So I left and I founded my own agency.
Okay, so then it's made by Vaculik?
Not really.
No?
There was a small stage between. I created and co-founded agency, which is known these days as Jandl, which is an acronym for JNL, Juraj and Laco. But the usual story, after some period, I realized that it's not the way how I would like to do the business. So then we split it, and I founded January 1st, 1996, the former creative studio, which was a very small, tiny, not even agency, it was creative studio. My vision was that once I will be in a situation that I need to hire the 10th person, I will close it. I was not willing to have a big agency, but somehow it started to be very successful, and these days it's made, which is medium advertising digital events.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember your first campaign you did made by Vaculik?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, this is like extremely emotional still relation with the client, because the first client I got into my new company, startup, let's say, those years was Tatra Banka, which these days is a huge client, still client of mine for 22 years. And believe it or not, the first year in 1996, the whole year budget was 300,000 crowns, so 10,000 euros for whole year. So you can imagine how advertising business looks those years. And I remember it was a series of 5 black and white print ads for an amazing innovation called Tatra phone, and people was absolutely fascinated with the innovation and technology which drives Tatra Bank also those years. So you can pick the phone. There was no mobiles that year, and with a special code from the so-called grid card, you have to say the password to the operator, and you got actual balance on your account. And it was such an amazing technology, and we promoted with that budget of 100,000 euros that Tatra phone. So it was the first campaign.
You pretty quickly, landed some big names, as Coca-Cola and IKEA, as I remember. How did you get to these guys, right? Like, was it the reference, or what was the key ingredients, like, to do the sales and business development there?
Just the work. In advertising, it's extremely fast business because what you created, usually the life cycle, it's 1 maximum 2 months time, because then it's a new product, new campaign, and we really started pretty small. What must be also said that those years was not easy because agencies like Donar and all those connected and linked and tied to the former government was really occupying whole industry. So a lot of friends, they told me, and I'm quite used for this, that it's absolutely stupid idea to start an agency these years because you have no chance really to win a big clients. But somehow it happens that I was able then to convince, because Tatra Banka was not client at all, it was so small, or Fun Radio, which I co-founded after the revolution also, but the first really game-changing year was 98 when we won 2 clients, Panasonic for not just Slovakia but some other countries, and then Eurotel, the times these days T-Mobile Telecom, but it was a really situation when they ran for the first time like absolutely crystal clear tender. We as a small Slovak company were really fighting against all those big networks, including BBDO, which I co-founded here locally before, and we won the tender, and this was a real accelerator to the success. But all those clients later, it was just they saw work. We convinced them with our strategy, with creative proposals, and then of course IKEA and all the campaigns. At the end, currently it's 36 countries when the work of my agency was used and already promoted.
So with these big clients, probably you can see some significant growth in your company, and it comes down to hiring people, finding the right people. How did you sort this out? How did you sort out the growth or scaling of your company? That's most of the kind of companies are struggling with. Any kind of suggestions? Or?
Not really, because ad and marketing, it's first of all, it's pretty cyclical business. So of course, it's depending on how the economy it's doing, and of course, to find and hire the right talent, it's not easy. So it's each time the combination of the people which are growing within the company, from the junior positions up to the senior ones, then to find the right people from the external environment, and at the end again, just to create a unique culture which will be motivational enough. And maybe that's the thing which I believe the most in each company, each of my projects, to create a culture which will be motivational, challenging, and will really save the right people. And at the same time, those people which are not fitting into the culture will realize it pretty soon, and they will leave or they will be left.
So this was kind of your first chapter of your entrepreneurial experience, and now you're working on larger projects and more visionary projects, I would say. Could you maybe take us, or give us some takeaways from the early days? What were your learnings from being an early entrepreneur?
Don't give up. And of course, shit happens all the time, even in a small project, big project. This is a daily experience. To trust to yourself, to the team. Of course, there are the days when you are not feeling the best and you are not really feeling that everything is going right. So that's necessary that you have around you the right people which will balance this and to keep the vision. Because at the end, even if you are failing, once you are believing that what you are doing is the right thing, and if you remember why you started something, and it's not important if it's a revolution or creating the new company or changing the political system or creating new art piece, this will give you back energy, commitment, and a power to do that.
Mm-hmm. You actually mentioned team. Did you have any co-founders in your first, made by Vaculik, or was it a solo, right?
No, it was a solo project, but at the same time, I'm a team person. I never did anything on my own, so each time I was really trying to be surrounded with the best people, and that's my usual way how to create anything. So with each project, with each idea, I'm trying really to positively influence the right people to join me and to work with me. But at the agency, that's something different. But of course, I have the team there, executive team. They are having their percentage on all the results. So even if it's not now legally done that way, but they are my partners in the agency.
Right. You're also known for your angel investments. What led you, what inspired you to support young companies, especially in the tech sphere?
When I started, it was 2008, 2009. Those years there was nothing like angel investors and VC. It was really early days. So when I'm looking back into those days, it was pretty naive. I just recently saw one contract because we were doing some due diligence in one project, and I was like, okay, so how this was possible? But I was motivated and driven by really trying to support the right people with the visionary ideas. Of course, I created some capital from my business, and even if it's not so high, I'm not in a range of really big investors, but I was just trying to find something which will really satisfy me, which will make me motivated and really thinking into the right direction. So instead of buying a yacht or a car like some of my competitors from my previous businesses did, I decided, okay, I will invest into the startups or new projects, and the usual story as an angel investor. So some of them immediately failed, some of them are doing well, some of them, let's see how they will be doing in the future. But I'm really happy that I decided to do it that way, because it just gave me much more information, maybe also some skills, and I'm really enjoying this period of my life.
Also work.
Definitely.
What was your first investment?
Okay, yeah. I don't know if it was first, but it was like 1 month when I decided, okay, I will start, and I did like 2 or 3 investments, and that one is pretty funny because I was convinced that not only me, also some co-investors, that this is disruptive technology. It was a unique solution. By the way, the team, which was also partly based by Slovaks, they won a Y Combinator. So they was for 3 months in the valley, and they were a unique solution. They was able to protect, and please don't laugh so much, CD. That it was not able to copy. Now it's totally strange, because we remember that CD was something which holds the data. These days it's already forgotten, but just a few years ago it looks like totally disruptive technology solution which will give a chance to anybody to protect either individual or with some software which was distributed over the CDs, this media, and it was really so innovative that they pass it through Y Combinator. But then usual story, the team was not working together, and it really ends like after 6 months. And of course it's funny these days that CD protection was such an innovative technology.
And especially in the early days where you had to really, or like early stages of the company, you really had to evaluate various aspects of the company. What do you look for in investment now as compared to the beginning, right? Like now you mentioned the team problem. Is it the core, or you also look at the product, the market, and the other aspects?
Definitely the combination, it's nothing new which I will be now describing. It's of course the team and a founder of founders. This is the really force behind everything. The idea is maybe not as important, surprisingly. More important is the marketplace, and it's so many cases when the original idea was pivoted into something different, or through the original idea, sometimes even the team realized that problem could be solved even better with a different solution. But really, the team, founders, leadership, and then of course the business model, because at the end it's about how to make profit through solving some problems. So these two main things.
Mm-hmm. I see we have some entrepreneurs here and quite young ones, and if they would come up to you asking for investment, what would you tell them before coming to you?
Honestly said, these days I'm not investing anymore because now I'm so committed to AeroMobil, and even I did the last investment 2 years ago. I'm really limiting this, but of course my plan is that in the future this will be something which definitely, especially after some really big successful huge exit, that's my motivation for the next stage, and again supporting and investing into the right ideas. So, but the answer is to be very clear. What's your vision? What's the problem which you will be solving with your solution, with your technology? And of course, I can imagine that a young entrepreneur will be able really to cover each question, which is part of the deck or the business strategy. But if just one thing is absolutely clear for him or for her, that's enough, because then it's also the partner dialogue between an investor and an entrepreneur to create something which will be better after the chat or after the dialogue, like compared to before.
Mm-hmm. And one of your probably the most well-known investments, it's a company that makes cars and flying cars, right? Called AeroMobil. Could you tell us, maybe like take us through the story, like at the beginning, how you spotted this company, and just kind of a little kind of intro to the whole picture.
So this is really a big story, and I think already pretty known. So my co-founder Stefan Klein, we are schoolmates, even not from the same academy. He was at the Academy of Fine Arts, I was at the Academy of Performing Arts, and in late 80s we were chasing the same girls, we were drinking in the same pubs, and also those years we were discussing some visionary ideas, and he was obsessed with the idea of the flying car. Of course, he is not the first one, or we are not the first company trying to build a flying car. Actually, this year is exactly 100 years from the first trial for the flying car. The first trial was Glenn Curtis, 1917 in US. But back to late 80s, so he was dreaming about this, so we were discussing the flying car project. Then of course he was doing his academic career at a university, and he created an amazing transportation design department here in Bratislava, which is not so known here locally, but internationally is really an amazing project. And over 50 of his students are now in top positions in companies like BMW, Mercedes, Volvo, you name them all. And I was doing my own businesses, and Serge Lafemme, a common friend of us, a lady, she met him, and he was absolutely frustrated that he was dreaming about the flying cars for 20 years. He was sketching and trying to create some scaled models, and he even talked to a lot of people. I surprisingly then realized how many people were aware about this project, but nobody was willing even to discuss it as an investment. So absolutely frustrated. With the support of that lady, he visited me in my agency, and he told me in a very emotional way that you are my last chance, and I heard that you are investing into the crazy project, so do you remember that crazy project? I said, of course. So we start to discuss. The first chat was like, I don't know, 4 hours. And I decided on the very first meeting that I will invest because he was discussing and drawing all the time on A4s that how it will look like, and I was immediately starting to realize how this really could revolutionize the personal transportation on a global scale. So then we founded the company in 2010, and that's the current AeroMobil.
So the idea was only on the paper. You've never seen even this pre-prototype. It was just a sketch?
No, I was following, but those was totally different concepts, and it was mostly, I still have in my office the sketches, some drawings, which was the first models, which then became physical with AeroMobil 2.5 and 3.0.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, as an investor, I can imagine that still investors are skeptical about this field. Was it the friendship that kind of made it so that I trust this guy, or?
Of course, it was a small part of this emotional decision that how to support the friend. That time I was not even imagining how much of my personal money I will invest into this. So I agreed that I will support the first prototype. It was very specific, even pretty high amount, which I decided and I committed that I will invest into the project. And there was nothing like the business plan. Of course, a person from academia who was never in any entrepreneurial project, it was no deck, no Excel, there was nothing. So it was my job really to create and to build a strategy. There was no team at the beginning, it was just 2 of us. But somehow I really enjoyed this, and it was a challenge for me starting this through each necessary step, but at the same time as an investor and as a co-founder. But it was amazing period of freedom. First 5 years of AeroMobil was fully funded by me. So by 2015. It was fully funded by me, and that was really something which I enjoyed because I was able to create a strategy and to decide on each step with the team, and that was the initial phase.
So at that stage, when you entered as normal investor, they set some milestones. And did you work like this with your co-founder Stefan? That this is what's gonna get done by this time, and if not, like it goes bust.
Not really. It will not work with him like this. He's not reading any emails. He's not answering the emails because he's not reading them. Any meeting for him is like the wasting of time. So it was really the way how. But I know how to work with the artists, so it was more. In this direction, but you're right. This is something which for investors still it's not as a usual kind of investment. Still, my best friends, family was looking on me like on a really big mad man, not because of ad business, but because of this investment. Bunch of Slovaks doing the flying car somewhere in Slovakia does not sound very credible, and even a year ago it was something absolutely strange. So even a lot of VCs were willing to talk to us because it's quite fancy, but it was absolutely science fiction kind of project, which actually this is something which is changing these days because of all the announcement from big players. It's much more credible, and let's see how this will be evolved.
Mm-hmm. So to create such a product, especially in the hardware kind of segment where it's not about like kind of next dating app, or like, you can build actually an MVP, right, that you can test out and bring back. You really need to build a product that's going to fly and work, and safety is the first. You build also an amazing team around it. You have experts from around the world. How did you do that and bring them here to Bratislava? Or like, tell us about your team. I mean, that's we need a presentation just for that.
It's like 10 questions together,
Sorry.
so I will try to answer them separately. Definitely, each hardware startup is much more difficult. There is nothing like minimum viable product, especially here because at the end there will be my friend, my wife, my kid. It must be absolutely safe. So the minimum viable product is a final product. We need to certify it. And here, of course, in ideal world, certification will follow innovation, but it's not like that. I think what was pretty smart at the beginning, that I decided, was my personal decision, with a very small team, that we will be building the first vehicle under the current regulatory, because there is nothing like a flying car category these days. So we will ask, okay, so how do you would like to certify it? Separately as a car and separately as a plane, which is like twice the work, 100 years of bureaucracy in the ground and 100 years of bureaucracy in the air, but that's possible, and we are doing it that way. And at the end we decided that regulatory here is not a bad thing, because at the end it's about the safety, and I want to be absolutely sure that the final product will be absolutely functional, reliable, it will be absolutely safe. So we are seeing regulation as a good thing. But to be able to pass it, my knowledge 7 years ago was zero. We are not just building pretty capital-intensive hardware, because it's a beautiful car, it's also a beautiful small plane. We need to combine it into one vehicle, and again, we need to certify it, and not just in Europe. We would like to also to sell it in US, in China. So it's even much more complex challenge, and you need the right people for this. So even we created something which is amazing. It was pretty naive. When we built the first two prototypes, it was something which was not able to scale, it was not able to certify. So I was really driven to find right people which will help us, and it was extremely difficult to convince the first person. It takes me more than 1 year. What I can recommend to any startup, just to try to get the right people first into advisory board, because those are the people which are not fully committing themselves to the project, but they can help you a lot. But to get the first person was quite an epic story. So to make a long story short, finally after a few months I got introduction through some venture capitalists, which said me, okay, you are totally crazy, but I can help you because I like you as a person, so I will give you an introduction to the person, to the man who is helping us with some investment. He's a Glenn Mercer. You can find him in our website, the former global head of automotive at McKinsey practice for 20 years, the gentleman who sits in the board of 3 automotive companies in US. And the starting of our conversation was absolutely funny. He told me, okay, another flying car, okay, so tell me about it. So he was pretty skeptical, but I was knowing that I have the chance and maybe it's the only one. So I was really like pushing, and after, I don't know, second, third, fifth conversation, he told me, okay, so maybe it's you and maybe it's now. And he was the first official advisory board member. And he was smart enough that after like 3 months, he told me that you need somebody with dirty hands from the real industry, and he introduced me to Anthony Sheriff. And he's like my personal Jesus, because Anthony is former vice president of Fiat Automotive. Then he's the guy who actually made McLaren Automotive from zero to hero, all those famous McLaren, Mercedes SLA, P1, F1, and all of you which likes the car. So Anthony is behind all those projects, and Glenn introduced me to Anthony, and I still remember it was like a beautiful movie scene. He came, and we just shake the hands, and we had also some previous phone conversation, and just for 20 minutes, with no sound, no word, he was just walking around, he was really scanning the vehicle, and then he told me, okay, it's amazing, I'm in. And then he helps me to find the right suppliers, the right people. So through him I get into the team. My CTO, Doug McAndrew, one of the most really respected engineers in this field with an amazing background. He is behind 20 vehicles with a world premiere from BMW, Mini, Jaguar Land Rover, McLaren, electric cars. And these days we have in the team 40 plus people from 8 different countries. One of them is sitting there, so Boris, please stand up. So there is one gentleman behind AeroMobil, and people from Germany, UK, France, Turkey, Italy, Spain, Norway, and counting.
And they are all in Bratislava.
Yeah, they are all in Bratislava, and I have to say that for them this was really very challenging decision, not just to join flying car company, but to relocate their families, their kids. But all of them, they are living here. They're absolutely satisfied, and what I really appreciate that they're declaring that the quality of life in Bratislava is one of the best, if not best, in their lives. So we are not knowing how good city we are having here.
Well, that's some good news for everybody who's trying to attract some foreign human capital. So, at least a nice example. And basically, this team helped you to build your latest 4.0 prototype, or how to call it. What's happening now with AeroMobil?
So last 2 years we were in a stealth mode, so people are asking, of course, a lot of different rumors. So what was presented 2014, 3.0, it was amazing. It was a beautiful piece of design, some basic functionality, but that vehicle was something which was not able to certify to even produce it. So we really ran some due diligence from certification authorities, both from aviation and from automotive. And then we realized, okay, so it's an amazing piece of design, already some knowledge which we aggregate through all the tests, flights which we had, and also the road test, but it must be really re-engineered from the scratch. And that was something which we did over the last 2 years, and you can imagine how many challenges we were passing. So we created already 14 patents because we just solving the things which was never done before, and from really the big challenges, like for example, to mention just one, to find the right propulsion system. It was a huge challenge which normally in big automotive companies will take approximately 8 to 10 years and will cost hundreds of millions. And we did it in less than 2 years. And to explain maybe more in detail, powertrain or engine, the propulsion system, it's totally different in the air and on the ground. In the air it's constant speed, just through the takeoff you are on the maximum throttle, and then you need a very reliable standard operation. Instead of on the ground you are all the time accelerating, braking, so the curve of the engine is totally different. Within emissions on the ground, it's extremely regulated. In the air, nobody cares so much. There is safety first, so if the pilot needs full throttle, he needs the full throttle, and nobody will take care how much emissions he's creating. But we can't have two engines in the vehicle because it will be too heavy. So we were testing, for example, 54 different engines to find at the end the right one, which will be the perfect solution. But I can announce that the first commercial AeroMobil will be hybrid, so it will be electrical on the ground, and it will be with a combustion engine in the air. So just one example. So really, but we did it extremely lean way. We are now having permanently our suppliers, partners, potential future investors, and they are simply amazed how fast, how efficient, cheap, and really lean way we did everything over the last 2 years.
Recently, we heard some announcements from big players such as Google, Uber, Airbus as well, joining this segment. How do you see it? Do you see it as a threat or opportunity, or what do you think about it? Like these big multinationals going here?
That's great. First of all, because they are far behind us, because most of those projects are just the sketches. But it's great because they're just building the credibility around this segment. Still talking to some investors a year ago, it was science fiction. Now with Uber, with Airbus, some other big players, Larry Page invested into 3 different projects, his personal, more than $100 million. That's really great because people are seeing this as the next big thing. None of the projects are so close to the market as we are. None of them is under the current regulatory, which is our big advantage because they can build it, but they will be not able to sell it because regulatory. And what also must be said that even most of them, they are using an expression that they are the flying cars. 95% of them are not cars at all. They are not capable to drive even 1 meter. But it's good that there is a new future aviation projects, because most of them are personal drones or new generation of electrical helicopters. But of course, flying car term is so fancy that most of them are using it, but they are not cars at all. What we are building and what we are believing that it will be better car because it's also the plane, and it will be better plane because it's also the car.
That comes to my another question. You need both infrastructures. You need infrastructure on the ground, but also kind of infrastructure in the air in terms of like the air traffic control, etc. How do you combine these two worlds, especially at the transformation part where you transform the car into a flying car?
Yeah, so transformation with the latest model, it's less than 3 minutes. But of course you can take off from the highway because it's not legally allowed. Even, for example, in Alaska you can, but it's not something which will give us the global scaling opportunity. But we have an infrastructure and it's good enough. We have both roads and we have already the air. So compared, for example, to cell phones, when they started, it was pretty expensive, the first models. There was no infrastructure at all to build the full global coverage. It costs zillions and it takes 20 years. And what we need, if you saw our videos, we build a suspension in a way that you can take off from the grass strip, which is very efficient, it's very environmental friendly. There is already a lot of small airports. So these days, in US there is more than 30,000 small airports. So not just the main ones. So for example, in Stuttgart, there is a main airport and there is more than 30 small airports around the Stuttgart. Private airstrips, in US a lot of golf clubs, they have the private airstrips, so infrastructure is already there. And in the future, the scaling will be even faster. I'm using an example that each time something is faster once there is some business behind. So once the BPs and Shells and OMVs of this world will realize the potential, they can build the infrastructure pretty fast because next to the petrol station or gas station, they own the property around by regulatory because there is the space which must be protected. And once they will build just 400 meters grass strip, they can charge me $10 for each takeoff, $10 for each landing, and the infrastructure will be created pretty fast. Each resting point on a highway is a legal point when I can combine both infrastructures, the road one and the air. And philosophically, to explain maybe in much more broader terms, what we need, there are just two things. We need reduction and expansion. We need to reduce numbers of vehicles in very city centers because most of them are not used properly. 90% of the time of the vehicles are just parked somewhere. So once we will have less cars in the cities, it will be not so difficult to pass the city in a rush hour. And between the cities, we need expansion. We need more transportation modes. We need the flying cars, hyperloops, tunnels, as Elon just announced, because this is something which will then give us a better option for transportation. I'm using an example here in Central Europe that Bratislava, Brno, Prague. Close to 90% of the traffic on the edging part of Brno has nothing to do with Brno. People just need to pass Brno because they're heading to Prague. But the grid these days is built in a way that just simply you need to pass Brno because you have no other option. So once this transportation will be lifted from two-dimensional space into the three-dimensional space, it will be much more efficient, much more pleasant for all of us, and much more safe. Because the probability for the accident on the ground is in centimeters. In the air, it's in hundreds of meters.
Mm-hmm. What will AeroMobil 5.0 look like?
Okay, so that's a very good question because, of course, now as we announced now in Monaco, the first product we were quite attacked mostly with the Slovak media that it's Rich Boy toy. Definitely not. Each new technology started just in two fields, even military or some niche market. Also the cell phones, when they started, I remember we were creating the ads for first cell phones just for $500,000 or 300,000 crowns. It was extremely expensive. There was no infrastructure. So the first model, which we are building now, this 4.0, the yellow one, is just the proof of concept, proof of technology, proof of certification, and definitely there will be very diverse group of first customers, early adopters, Hollywood stars, tech pioneers, visionary entrepreneurs, just the rich, crazy Russian billionaires, but that's okay. That's just the initial product. Our ultimate goal as a company is mobility or transportation as a service. When I announced it 2 years ago at South by Southwest, that my ultimate goal is to build something like the flying Uber, the American media were really having fun from this declaration, but last year in October, Uber announced that they are ready to deploy such a service, and that's the goal of AeroMobil. So the next one, 5.0, will be transportation service. You don't need to own it, you will have just an access to the technology. So you will just pick your phone, you will open an app, you need to be in 1 hour in Prague, even you will have a private jet. You just need to go through the whole city to the airport, then jump on a plane. You will fly not where you want to go. You will be at the another airport. You just need to have again the last mile by some cab. Instead of that, you will just open an app here in front of the building. You will jump into AeroMobil. In Lamač, you will take off. Next to the highway in Průhonice, you will land, and in less than 1 hour, you will be there in a cost which will be absolutely affordable to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the first part, which will be manually operated. So you still need to have the physical pilot there. But in the future, it will be not another boring self-driving car. Our vision is that it will be self-flying car. And here we believe also that adoption will be much faster from the air to the ground, because all of us, we are so used for something called autopilot that we will be willing much more to be depending on the technology. Technology is already here. There are some projects we are working with them which are having already AI for flying, really artificial intelligence for flying, adaptive flight controls, but legally it's not yet approved. But once it will be here, the next generation will be fully autonomous, because at the end, from A to B, that's an algorithm. How the data are fixed, number of passengers, distance, how the data are flexible, weather, bandwidth, and this will be done each time much better by computer than by the man.
Well, that's just amazing to hear that, something like this is happening just, around the corner, this kind of cutting edge technology.
In Podunajskej Biskupíce.
Podunajskej Biskupíce, right there. Right, and recently we heard some news that you had a new investor in your company. What changes it brought to the company, and what's happening there as well?
What changes? We have a fresh capital, which is good each time with a startup, but it's a nice story because, of course, as I said, to convince VCs, it's not easy. Now more and more they are approaching us, which for me is like the new kind of experience, because I was just chasing them the last 2 years, and now they are really sending cold emails via LinkedIn and some of the really most powerful names. But let's see what will be the output at the end. But these kind of projects more and more are supported also in a valley by visionary entrepreneurs. As I mentioned, Larry Page invested 120 million of his private money into 3 different projects. Also in Asia, some visionary businessmen are investing into the flying cars. And Patrick Hessel is a kind of person with a similar background. He's an entrepreneur. He's following us. We are meeting regularly over the last 4 years. So he saw the development of AeroMobil from 2.5 up to the recent version. We were discussing also how we can cooperate, because the final product is based more than 60% of carbon fiber and composite materials, and he built an amazing startup, which maybe is not so known, but really from scratch. In 10 years, company C2I, which is these days one of the biggest suppliers and producers of carbon fiber parts for both both aviation and automotive with the clients from Airbus, Porsche, Lamborghini, and so on. So we were meeting quite regularly, discussing some potential future cooperation, and he did an amazing exit. So in April, he sold 50.1% of his company to LG. So he really now sitting on a pretty big amount of cash. So in 2 weeks after his exit, he immediately invested into AeroMobil. And for me, it's great because now I have in a company all the skill set which he has from the scaling the production. We just created much stronger bond with C2I. So it's the combination of private investment and also the strategic partnership with C2I. And last but not least, it's very important that this is like verification of what we are doing. Because, and I heard it so many times from some investors that they simply are not able to judge it, to have a proper due diligence, not just on financial stuff, but on technology and certification. And as Patrick is so close to both aviation and automotive, he was able, and by the way, he did a really very robust due diligence on those fields. And for the other investors, which also some big names will be announced shortly this week from the VC world, they are now following this because it's just the proof of certification, strategy, and technology, and also the team. And I have to say that Patrick was absolutely amazed when he saw the skill set which is aggregated in AeroMobil. We just counted it because one investor asked for this data. So today we have more than 400 years of cumulative experience, both from automotive and from aviation.
When can we buy AeroMobil, and how much will it cost?
After this, we already announced months ago, we start to take pre-orders and deposits, so you can order one. And in this segment, it's not something which will be just right away from the dealer's room. We are in a segment of supercars and small planes, and they are built on order. So you can. It's done in 3 steps. So first, the reservation. You have some time frame for the proper legal and individualization, because this personalization in this segment is very important. Then you pay 20% upfront deposit. Of course, it's covered with all the legal guarantees. So it's kind of escrow with the cars when we are ordering on the plane. There is something called advance purchase guarantee. So we are not using those money as a working capital. It will be just used once your physical vehicle will start to be in production line, and you can have one. So the first pre-orders, which we are collecting now, will have the first deliveries in 2020.
And how much do we need to pay?
So the range for the initial product is from 1.2 to 1.5 million euros, and even it looks like a pretty high amount. It's not as much because you will get both supercar and a small plane. And I was really so happy that 3 minutes after we sent the press release to the media, late April, the first article was in VentureBeat, which is a very important media for us. And the headline in VentureBeat was that the first commercial AeroMobil will cost only 1.2 million.
Not bad, right? All right, so actually, I think the time is quite tight here. So I just have maybe a couple of ending questions. Do you actually have free time in your life?
I'm here, so yes.
Okay, what do you do outside of work? Like any hobbies, and how do you like to relax?
So this will be the statement which some of my family friends will then complain. I'm trying to be as much as possible with my family. I have 2 small kids, but it's not so easy because I'm traveling a lot, and of course this work is non-stop. So this is the limit, and in the free time. I love food, I'm a big foodie, so to combine maybe some family trips with some good restaurants, this is the best relax for me.
You previously mentioned that you are not looking for investment, but are you still in touch with some I don't know, the local startup community? Do you observe like what projects are being built here?
Absolutely, I'm trying also to support with some contacts. As I said, also even I declared I'm not investing. I invested less than 2 years ago into one startup, which is actually a British one, but the co-founder and CEO is Slovak person. They are based now in a valley, so time to time I'm doing this kind of investments. And really I try to support community here. Actually today, there were 3 articles about Slovakia and Danube Valley, as we are calling this, and it's really important to join forces, and not just here in Slovakia. So also I'm now pretty often in contact with a lot of startups and founders in Czech Republic, in Austria. I just spent 2 days now at Pioneers because we need to work together. We are such a small region that to be visible globally, we really need to join forces and to present what we are doing together. And this is also part of my time, and I'm really dedicating a lot of my contacts also, as AeroMobil is pretty known in the global media. I'm also trying to help some local startups with all those leads which we have, because we have access to any media around the globe. We are not as present as we could be, because I said that we need to over-deliver, not to over-promise. So we are really trying to keep it low, and we are now preferring the media, which, for example, Financial Times are good in a time of fundraising or tech round and venture beat and this kind of media. But we are not really as much as necessary. Maybe one article, Top Gear, now in June was very important for us, because we got a very positive 6-page article on the technology and the team. And once we started now our sales, it's great that so respected media like Top Gear are referring extremely positively about us.
Yeah. And one general message to our community, it's being recorded, so the whole world will see it. So what you got to say to us?
Really, also through my personal experience, everything is possible. Once you committed, once you believe into your vision, once you are full of trust to your team, and you're sure that what you are doing is not just something temporary, which is not solving really a big problem, then you just have to go on, to have enough stamina and commitment, and you will succeed. Maybe not as fast as you would like to have it, but at the end, success will come.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, and now I will spare 5 to 10 minutes with your questions. So, first one, what are your KPIs regarding traction? How many pre-orders do you have already?
I can reveal, of course, we'll be presenting this now, as this is not something as easy just to sign. As I said, it's very individual. Once you are buying something for 1.2 or 1.5 million, it's very individual relation. So we'll be announcing this, but what I can disclose that it's better than we were planning that after the first months. But we really need to turn it into all the legal documentation, and also we would like to then promote some of the first customers, because this will just create bigger credibility once some of the people will be willing also to disclose that they are first clients or customers of AeroMobil.
Mm-hmm. How do you see the competition with drones like flying cars and vertical takeoff, landing?
So partially I answered that most of the projects declaring that the flying cars, they are not cars at all. So exactly drones. And VTOL is a different story. So VTOL, or vertical takeoff and landing, is something which I'm calling that obsession. It's not bad. We are also analyzing, we are having some of our own concepts on VTOL, but I think most of my technical staff that this is not something which is crucial. First of all, because of the nature of flying, just to lift the dead weight and to keep it in the air, it will cost you close to 40% of your fuel. In a failure, immediately you are falling down. Once you have the fixed wing, you can glide, it's much more safer, it's much more efficient. The distance is very short with VTOL because VTOL is based on something what is called distributed electric propulsion. So a lot of ducted fans and batteries, and that's the biggest problem because the current generation of batteries are not capable enough. They have pretty high weight, which in flying is crucial. They don't have enough capacity for flying. Still, there is a huge problem with overheating of batteries, which in flying again is extremely dangerous. So, as I said, we are also working on this, but I don't think that this will be in the future widely used, because at the end, even if you have a helipad, you need somehow to move all those units on the ground. And the simple expression is that you saw definitely a lot of movies with some helicopters, and it's not so many cases when a helicopter is really VTOLing. Each helicopter trying even with the propeller to create some lift with the blades. So what we are heading, it's a category called STOL, short takeoff and landing. When on an extremely short runway, you just airborne, and of course for the full certification category, you need to pass an obstacle and different categories, different conditions. But again, VTOL makes no so much sense these days because there is no regulatory for this. Only usual helicopter, and look how many helicopters are out there and how many planes with a fixed wing.
Mm-hmm. What is the maximum range for AeroMobil at the moment?
So you can on our new website there is all the technical details. So it's officially in flying 750 kilometers. In average conditions, plus 45 minutes reserve time, which by regulatory you must have plus 45 minutes reserve in flying. But in a good weather, because of course depending on weather, this is up to 1,000 kilometers based on the current technology, current engine, current propulsion. I mentioned weather, so I will comment once more the VTOL. More than 40% of all flights globally are delayed or cancelled because of weather. And VTOL is very limited in bad weather. With strong wind or with rain. And for example, thunderstorms tend to be very local. So in a situation when all the VTOLs or helicopters will be grounded, and you will be just stopped for a few hours, you will be not able to fly. With AeroMobil, you can drive as a car 20-30 kilometers to the next airport when the weather will be much better, because it's usually very local, and then you can fly away. So you can have both modes, and you will have a fully functional car and a fully functional plane.
Mm-hmm. When will be Slovakia ready for flying cars, law regulation perspective? You mentioned that you are in two regulatory kind of schemes, so the aircraft and the road car. Do we need actually any other regulation in Slovakia to take off?
No, here is an advantage of European market. So we are certifying it first in Europe under the EASA, European Aviation Safety Agency. So once we will pass this certification, you can drive it or fly it in Slovakia, in Europe, and then also in other continents. Of course, you need to have a proper license, both driving license and PPL, private pilot license, which is not as difficult as somebody could think, because the initial stage of PPL in US these days is just 25 hours of flying, and in EU 40 hours for the initial PPL.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Another question we have. So, what is the response to Stefan's point that AeroMobil still has a long way of development to go before it can go into production?
I answered it already. So 2020s we are doing it in a portion of the time. Of course, Stefan has limited information about certification. He was not involved into the development of the last product. So all the data which we announced, we are fulfilling. When I said 2015 at South by Southwest that we will start to commercialize flying car AeroMobil, in 2017. We did it, and we are working with all the regulators in a project plan with all the milestones, and it will be. But of course, still there are 2 years in front of us, but it's just a portion of the usual time.
Right. How do you motivate your employees?
It's a combination of company culture, but at the end it's the vision. And I think that I have a lot of discussions with all those different people from different countries with the different backgrounds. But for engineers, it's like the toy store, because being able to work on a flying car, and some of our engineers were working on some of the most iconic cars or planes in history. So we have people from, as I said, Aston Martin, Lockheed Martin, BMW, and for them, being part of the history is something amazing. So it's a big part of the motivation.
Yeah. It's about the opportunity, right? Like building the next big thing.
Yeah.
Right. What differences do you see between Slovak and foreign startup scenes? I guess, well, your startup is half like you have a bunch of foreigners, so it's like a mixture. Do you see any differences between the local scene and let's say in Valley? You have also investments in the Valley and like London.
It's difficult to judge. It's depending on the field, of course, in hardware, software. But I think that the biggest difference is that we are still suffering to have access to the right capital, to get the funding, not the angel funding. I don't think that this is the problem. If you have a good idea and you are able to present it in the right way, you will get funding from angel investors. Is now, I think, overhyped. Now so many people are willing to invest into the startups, even not knowing the basic rules. But for scale-ups, especially for hardware startups, it's difficult to get funding. If you will be in a valley, it will be much easier for us. On the other hand, it will be everything 5 times more expensive, because that's the magic of Slovakia, because we have all our suppliers in a range of 100 kilometers because of more than 1 million cars produced last year. So it's some advantages, some disadvantages.
Right. If there's a large automaker or a tech company, would you sell AeroMobil to them? Your baby?
Whole company or just the fleet?
Or IP, you know, like IP part or the whole company? Like,
No,
you can elaborate.
No, we are running. IP is a big asset-oriented company. I started to work on this in 2013, so pretty early, and I spent a lot of my private money on patents, and I was knowing that this is something which is extremely important. So, for example, I run a pitch, and in the final round I have 2 best companies in the globe for IP, for patents, Fisher & Richardson and Finnegan. We work with Finnegan. And we already have 14 patents, some of them already globally granted, some of them still pending, and definitely some of the competitors some of them already ask to have an access to some of our IP, because as we are so advanced, we were solving a lot of challenges, which, for example, we have on one axis both steering wheel and a yoke. And let's imagine that during the landing, most of the projects they have separately the steering wheel and a yoke, and it's not as easy to handle the vehicle and in very second to then decide to change the operational mode. So, for example, one of the example, or we have a variable pitch, we are able to move whole wings, not just the flaps, in a range of 16 degrees. So there is really some unique technology behind it, and we are willing to sell it. But I think that the question was made in a way, if as an exit we'll be willing to sell the whole company to some automaker. Of course, we are preferring to build it as an independent, global successful company. I was really trying by purpose to implement the DNA of McLaren, because it's an amazing story. I really recommend to study this, because what they did, it's in a portion of the usual cost. Average cost of designing and producing the new car, just the car, not the flying car, is from 800 million up to 1.2 billion, and McLaren, they did it in just less than 100 million, and they built one of the most iconic cars. So that's the reason why I'm really keeping this DNA of McLaren in the company.
I think we kind of answered this question, but how does AeroMobil target customer looks like? So you mentioned that maybe the first phase you're targeting, but maybe in the long run, who would be the ideal customer
For the next product, all of us, all of you, it will be for each person using these days Uber. So people who are traveling on a daily, weekly basis, even for the business trips or for recreational weekend trips, and it will be extremely affordable. We already have a lot of detailed calculation of the maintenance cost and operational cost, fuel, and really this is something which any of you can have without any problem with financing. It will be so cheap.
Looking forward. So last two questions. Don't you think, or probably what do you think about developing regular ground cars, for example, electromobiles? Do you see any kind of clash or like synergy between electromobiles and AeroMobil?
Well, it's really great, and we are really following what's going on. For example, my CTO, he was working for 5 years, 6 years on electric cars. So of course we would like to have AeroMobil as soon as possible, fully electrical. But as I said, current batteries are not good enough. So we have just the hybrid with the first version. But in the future, we would like to have it fully electrical. So we are following this, and with the cars, as I said, we need to reduce or to utilize cars much better. I'm a big fan of let's call it sharing economy or mobility as a service, that people will have access instead of ownership, and we need just to utilize cars much better than these days, when really 90% of the lifetime of the cars they are just parked somewhere. Because once they will be in a productive use, we don't need anymore so many parking places. We can have, instead of the parking lots, we can have parks or different kind of usage of those properties, and it will be much better for all of us.
All right. Last question. How did you have in your company set to pay employees? Yeah. I don't really get it.
I don't
to be honest.
either.
Anyways, if maybe I could take one more question from the audience, and that's how we finish it off. Do you guys have any questions you'd like to ask Juraj, or this is all we had for tonight? Perfect. All right. So please give it up for Juraj. It was a great interview. So please. Thank you.